I was suddenly involved in a car accident on the way to a prenatal checkup, and when I woke up, the fetus in my womb was dead. I was so grief-stricken that I washed my face with tears all day long, only to unexpectedly find out that the car accident was designed by my husband. He deliberately modified the brake system just to get the umbilical cord fetal blood of the fetus in my womb to save his leukemia son with his ex-wife. Their children were rescued and thrived healthily, and the family was harmonious and beautiful. But my child died before even seeing his mother, and I was disabled in a car accident and couldn't take care of myself. I went to the door to argue, and was humiliated and beaten to death by the two people. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was reborn and went back to the day of the prenatal checkup. This time, I touched the fetus in my belly and secretly swore. Since God let us live, then they should die. Vivian, I have something to do today. You have no problem with your own prenatal checkup. When I opened my eyes, my husband Gabriel was looking at me with concern. I found myself nestled in the couch, surrounded by soothing piano music. There was a slight fetal movement in my heavy stomach, and my disabled legs, which were obviously unconscious, were beating rhythmically at this time. But haven't I already? A glimpse of the calendar on the wall. I understood instantly. I was reborn, and I was reborn back to the day of the prenatal checkup. This day will be the moment when my soul enters the night. What's wrong? Baby kicking you again? Gabriel saw me covering my stomach, hugging me affectionately, and whispering in my ear. No, it's okay for me to go by myself, I'll go back to the house to clean up first. Thinking about everything in my previous life, I felt nauseous in my heart and subconsciously pushed him away. When I went back to the bedroom, I took advantage of his unpreparedness and brought his usual bag into the house. After packing up the clothes, Gabriel's impatient voice was faintly heard in the living room. Don't rush it? Are you anxious for me more than you? Sidiye is all my people, where is she going? Don't worry. In his previous life, he explained that the debtor ran away. But now I know soberly. The person on the other end of the phone is his ex-wife, Selena. Their 8-year-old son had leukemia and wanted to save his life with the umbilical cord blood of the fetus in my womb. Knowing that I still have 2 months due date, it is impossible to agree to an early cesarean section, so I try my best to calculate me. I pushed the door open, and Gabriel hurriedly stuffed the phone into his pocket and lit a cigarette. When he saw the luggage in my hand, he frowned. Wife, why are you taking it for a prenatal checkup? What are you doing? Of course it's to prevent you from being a demon. But I still explained kindly, isn't it 2 months before the due date? I want to go home to see my mother after the prenatal checkup, and it will be even more inconvenient in a few days. Gabriel seemed a little hesitant. He stood in front of the window, staring at the parking lot in the distance, and after a moment he exhaled a large cloud of smoke. It's okay, then I'll see you off. Gabriel insisted on giving me a ride. He put his luggage in the trunk, saw me get into the car, asked the driver Louis a few words, and the phone rang. Presumably it was Selena who came to urge him again, and he hurriedly left. Madam, fasten your seatbelt. Louis reminded me with a smile. I snorted, is it safe to wear a seatbelt? What? Do you want us and the child in my belly to look good? Louis was stunned, probably not expecting how I could say it so bluntly. He lowered his head and was a little at a loss. Madam, I know you're insincere. I interrupted him. How much money did Gabriel give you to harm me? I'll give you double. What money, madam? To tell you the truth, my wife's cancer will be operated on soon. I'm in a hurry to go home, although I don't understand why Gabriel deliberately asked me to open quickly, but I think no matter how urgent it is, you and the young master must be sent safely. Louis is from the countryside and is honest and loyal. He rubbed his hands, not like he was lying. I can't help but think of what happened in my previous life. The car lost control as it passed the turn, and Louis tried hard to pull the handbrake, causing the rollover and rear-end collision. He died instantly, and I was disabled. When the car was overhauled, it was said that there was a problem with the brake system. I felt something was wrong, because the car had only been maintained for a few days. After some investigation, I found out that Gabriel did it. When I checked the accounts, I found that Gabriel had given Lewis's wife a large sum of condolences. So I'd always thought that Lewis just wanted to use his death to get money for his wife's treatment. But now I understand. He was also deceived by Gabriel. Gabriel is really good. In order to pick himself clean, he does not hesitate to sacrifice innocent people to fake car accidents. Thinking of this, I stuffed my bank card into Lewis's pocket. There are 500,000 yuan in it. You don't have to send me away. Go home. My sister-in-law must need you very much at this time. I just want you to keep it a secret for me. Lewis said he would not accept anything. I forcibly stuffed my bank card into his pocket and threw him out of the car. He slapped the car window with tears in his eyes. Madam, you are a good person, and you and your children will be safe for the rest of your life. Yes. Definitely. I hurried onto the road with my luggage, rustling behind me. It was Gabriel's bodyguards. It seems that my every move is under his control. Today, no matter what, they are going to do it. Ravenwood is powerful, and it's useless for me to escape. The wicked do not die, and there is no day of peace after all. I touched my stomach and comforted my flesh and blood who had never met but were worried. Mom didn't protect you and herself in her previous life, so that the wicked could succeed. But don't worry, in this life, I will definitely let them pay for their lives. I stopped a taxi and deliberately raised my voice. Master, Maternal and Child Health Hospital. In a private clinic. Dr. Simon looked solemn after reading the four-dimensional ultrasound. Vivian, you take this break first, and I'll be back later. As he spoke, he thoughtfully handed over a glass of plain water. I took a sip. After he left, I spat the water back. Then I rinsed my mouth frantically with mineral water, all poured into the flowers on the balcony. In my previous life, I was calculated by the people closest to me, and I don't believe anyone in this life. I sent the secretly recorded four-dimensional film to my sister. She is also an excellent obstetrician. Sister, the fetus is fine, it's normal, what's wrong? Sure enough, Dr. Simon was bought. Wait until I go back and tell you. I calmly took out the headphones from my bag. In the morning, I went back to the house and deliberately sewed the wiretap into the mezzanine of Gabriel's usual bag. Selena's crying voice came from the wiretap. When is the operation? Nathan couldn't wait. Dr. Simon hesitated. Gabriel, I see that Vivian drank the mixed water, but the fetus is healthy. If the cesarean section is delivered 2 months earlier, the child will. There is a high probability that he will not survive. Gabriel seemed to be a little hesitant. Selena, can't we think of another way? Other ways? If there is any other way, I will still come to beg you. Selena's voice was urgent. Even if she doesn't save her child, can't she still give birth? But I can't have children. Nathan is my life, and if something happens to him, I won't live. These words made me so angry that my teeth itched. If she can't give birth, she's going to take my child's life? I don't understand what you're hesitating about. Do you feel sorry for her? Selena cried out of breath. Gabriel's voice was cold. Of course not, I'm just worried that it will make a big deal out of it and affect our Ravenwood reputation. But now I can't control that much. Dr. Simon, prepare for the operation. After listening to the conversation of several people, I called the police directly. Not long after the phone hung up, the footsteps of a group of people sounded in the corridor. I pretended to faint and lay in the hospital bed. The door opened, and Gabriel was afraid I would wake up, so he suggested Dr. Simon gave me another shot. I opened my eyes suddenly and Dr. Simon was startled. How? You? He looked at the empty cup on the table and was a little puzzled. Turning my face is not good for me, delaying time is the best choice. I just waited to fall asleep. How is the child? When I saw Gabriel behind him, I pretended to be shocked. Oh, husband? What are you doing here? Aren't you in trouble? In the end, it is the person who has seen the big scene. Gabriel remained calm and composed, his face unchanged. He sat down next to me and held my shoulders with sadness on his face. Dr. Simon said that the baby was not in good condition, so I rushed over immediately. Dr. Simon took the opportunity to answer quickly, yes, Vivian, I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to accept the call I made to Gabriel just now, and the child has congenital heart disease. We suggest that you better induce labor. What? Vivian, I also had a hard time accepting this news when I first learned about it. But I think you, like me, don't want your baby to suffer when you are born, right? When I think that he will be soaked in a medicine jar in the future, he can't exercise vigorously, and even running is dangerous, it's too much of a crime, we can't be so selfish. If you don't live a new life. Maybe I will be fooled by his solid arm and perfect acting skills. But now, I saw through his hypocrisy and only felt disgusted. I shook my head. Husband, isn't heart disease curable? The Ravenwood family has a big business, so it's not difficult to change a child's heart, right? You know he's been in my belly for 8 months, I couldn't eat anything at first, and then I couldn't sleep all night and suffered a lot, but I survived. We have heard his heartbeat together, named him, and welcomed his birth with joy, and you are really willing to do it now. Give up on him? I almost gritted my teeth and said those last 3 words. Gabriel's face was gray and ugly. Of course I can't bear it, but... Okay, are the test results accurate? Is it possible that the child is not developing well before the month? Can't we observe it again? Gabriel looked at me with a tense face. I have been pulling with him with kind words. Unexpectedly, at this time, the door slammed open. Selena broke through the door with a silver fruit knife in her hand. Gabriel, what are you talking nonsense about with her? She doesn't agree to a cesarean section, so I'll help her. As she spoke, she rushed towards me. Gabriel quickly stopped her. Selena struggled to no avail, and Poudong knelt on the ground and pointed the tip of the knife at her throat. Gabriel, is it possible for me and Nathan to die in front of you before you can make up your mind? She cried so miserably, I felt sorry for her. Gabriel lifted Selena up movingly. In his eyes, Selena is a good mother. But I know that she is selfish and vicious. After the 2 killed my child, I learned the truth and came to question it. She slapped me hard and mocked, my son is the son of the Gu family, and you're just a vessel to extend my son's life. She was afraid that I would be entangled, so she and Gabriel pushed me down the stairs and threw me to my death. But looking at the current posture, Gabriel will not let her be impulsive. I pulled out my hand to pull the circlip knife out of my bag and pretended to be frightened and hid behind Gabriel. Husband, what is she talking about? Gabriel saw a trace of blood on Selena's neck. With a little panic, he pinched my wrist with his backhand. Vivian is obedient, we really can't keep this child, we will have another child. No, I don't agree. I used all my strength to bite his hand hard. Gabriel was in pain, but he still didn't let go, and he pointed at Dr. Simon winked. Don't be stunned, hurry up. Selena also got up to help. A few people held me down. Seeing that the tranquilizer was about to be stabbed on his body, the police came. I ran barefoot to them and pointed at the people in the room in tears, they want to murder me and the child in my belly. Inside the police station. The police from the laboratory handed me the test results. Vivian, the remaining liquid in the cup is not a drug, it is calming and calming. Dr. Simon said the water was not for you, and we can't tell if it's true or not. I pointed to Gabriel, but he forced me to have a cesarean section. Gabriel pointed to my stomach and smiled, that's also my flesh and blood, how can I force you to have a cesarean section? I pointed to Dr. Simon, they colluded to say that my baby had congenital heart disease and suggested that I induce labor. But I consulted the relevant people, and my child is healthy. Dr. Simon thought for a moment, Vivian, if you suspect that there is something wrong with my diagnosis, you can bring it up for a new examination, there is no need to call the police. I turned to Selena again, what about her? Rushed into the ward with a knife to kill me. Selena was aggrieved, Vivian, why are you spitting blood? I am just eager to save my son and ask Gabriel, my biological father, for help. She pointed to her neck, and this knife is clearly aimed at me, okay? The 3 people are unified and testify to each other. It's like I have paranoia. After coming out of the police station, several people got into the car and left. Gabriel said with a calm face, "Vivian, since you know everything, what are you pretending? You are the one pretending, right?" He frowned and lowered his voice. "Vivian, it's not right for me to lie to you, but Nathan really needs cord blood, can you not be willful? It's just an unborn child, if you think about it, we can have 10 more. I want to fart. How damn this is said. Both born and unborn are life. Nathan has seen the world for 8 years, but the child in my belly was killed by them before even his mother saw it." I met Gabriel's eyes directly. "Then what if I don't agree?" His eyes were like a deep pool, and his voice was cold and piercing. "I can't get what Gabriel wants, you have no choice. Vivian, don't force me to use coercive measures against you. Since that's it. Then don't blame me." I instantly changed my smile and put my arm on his arm. "Gabriel, you know that I love you very much and am willing to do anything for you, so you should have said no? Why are you going around in such a big circle? You're right, it's not that we can't be reborn. I promise you to give Nathan umbilical cord blood, but you have to agree to my condition." Gabriel didn't expect me to agree so simply. "You can mention the conditions casually, villas and luxury cars are not a problem." He frowned, "But are you really willing to have a cesarean section 2 months early?" I looked embarrassed. "So what, but Nathan is also your son." "My conditions are also very simple. I don't believe in domestic doctors, I want to go abroad to find foreign experts." "I'm right. Foreign countries are always more mature in this kind of unconventional technology." Gabriel immediately agreed to my terms. He booked a plane ticket overnight and took me and Selena and I on the plane. In the cabin, Nathan was wearing a mask and was collapsing, looking at me with hostility. He whispered to Selena, "Mom, will she change her mind?" I was so afraid of dying abroad. Selena patted him weakly and comforted him. "Don't worry, if she dares to play tricks, your dad will let her and the seeds in her belly be buried with you." I sneered, closed my eyes, and stroked my stomach. "Baby, they probably don't know yet. The moment they get on the plane, their lives are already counting down." The plane landed in country A. Gabriel bought 2 villas. To prevent me from slipping away, he asked more than 20 bodyguards to protect me outside the villa. In the evening, while he was taking a shower, I got his mobile phone. Above is a chat between him and Selena. "Selena, Gabriel, after taking the cord blood, we will remarry, and she can't make trouble." Gabriel, "Of course, if it weren't for saving Nathan, how could I have faked divorce from you and marry her? No wonder Selena says my child is a vessel for saving people." They quarreled back then, and Gabriel wanted to be angry with her for chasing me in the name of singleness. He didn't give me a wedding on the grounds that his father had died less than 3 years ago. After knowing I was pregnant, he suddenly disappeared. As a result, it didn't take long for him to confess to me that he hadn't divorced yet, and I accompanied him to divorce and get a certificate for the sake of the child. It turned out that Nathan was diagnosed with leukemia at that time. Then turned down. She didn't have a chance to make trouble either. "Didn't you take the initiative to come abroad? Then stay here forever." It seems that Gabriel readily agreed to let me go abroad, but he didn't want me to go back. I sneered and changed his appointment to my brother-in-law Caleb's. Then I sent a message to my sister Renee. "Are you ready?" My sister's message replied quickly, "Sister, open the whole thing." My looming smiling face was printed on the mobile phone on the screen. "Okay, the show is about to begin." Nathan's condition was serious. The operation was scheduled a few days earlier. I offered to go out for a walk. Gabriel firmly disagreed. He was afraid that if something went wrong, the plan would be ruined. I was aggrieved and coquettish. "I want to buy clothes for the baby." His expression did not change. I stroked my belly with a crying voice. "If the baby really doesn't keep it, he must know how sad it would be if his father was reluctant to even buy him a piece of clothing, in case he came to you to ask for," I said as I blew behind his ear. Gabriel's arm instantly got goosebumps. He was a little uncomfortable on his face. Didn't the experts say that giving specific drugs 2 months prematurely will promote cell growth and the baby will survive healthily? I sneered, if there really is such a miracle medicine. What mother doesn't want to give birth to her child as soon as possible? It's just that my brother-in-law made it up, probably because he was afraid that I would change his mind halfway, so he picked up his clothes and called the bodyguards in. It's just a piece of clothing. It's easy for me to buy a mall in Ravenwood, let's go early and come back early. Although Gabriel was unwilling, he was afraid that I would make trouble, so he agreed. In the mall. Although I was pregnant, I still walked around for more than an hour. Gabriel was a little impatient. I smiled and shook his arm coquettishly, the last one, and then we'll go home. I took a maternity outfit and entered the fitting room with his tired look. Sister, I haven't seen you for 10 years, I want you to die. As soon as I entered, my sister Renee hugged me tightly. In the narrow fitting room, there are 2 identical faces in the mirror. It's just that one has a pregnant belly and the other doesn't. That's right, my sister Renee and I are twins. No one can tell the difference except my parents. In addition, Renee has a broad heart and a fat body, which is exactly the same as me, who is pregnant. Gabriel knew that I had a sister abroad. But I didn't tell him that we looked exactly the same. Didn't he secretly change my baby in his last life? Then in this life, I will treat others in their own way. Renee, you don't doubt my rebirth at all? Renee quickly changed my makeup and tied her fake pregnant belly around her waist. Sister, on the day you died, I had a dream. I dreamed that Gabriel changed the brakes and caused you to get into a car accident. They are not in a hurry to operate on you who is covered in blood, but they are in a hurry to get a cesarean section first. Later, you had trouble moving in a wheelchair and were pushed down the stairs by the dog man and woman. The blood of you and your nephew stained the whole dream, and we were crying, but they were laughing. Renee gritted her teeth, scumbags, murderers, they deserve to die. But I'm still a little worried about her and Caleb. Renee took my hand. Sister, we're not afraid. In Country A, everything is understandable for freedom. On the day of surgery, I was pushed into the delivery room. Selena breathed a sigh of relief, put Gabriel's arm around her arm and mocked, Vivian really loves you, but this brain is not enough, and your heart is quite ruthless, and you don't feel distressed. She's just a plaything, how can she compare to you? The nurse said Nathan had a nosebleed and had to go to the warehouse immediately. Selena was worried about the bodyguard, gritted her teeth and instructed Gabriel, look at Vivian, when you get the cord blood, everything will be over. Before entering the warehouse, she cheered Nathan up. Don't worry, son, parents are waiting for you to come out. It's just that what everyone didn't expect. I, who had been in the delivery room and was about to have a cesarean section, disappeared out of thin air on the operating table. Gabriel is crazy. He rummaged through the operating room like crazy and cursed. The bodyguards immediately called up the surveillance at the door. But except for a few nurses wearing masks who came in and out, no pregnant women came out at all. He roared at the dean with scarlet eyes, where are the people? How did the living disappear? The dean couldn't understand what he was crazy about, so he called the police directly. The operation was originally done privately across departments, and he had to promise the experts to keep it confidential. It is said to be a normal bone marrow donation, but in fact it is cord blood treatment. But Selena cries for Gabriel to find someone. Gabriel had no choice but to tell it all. The dean muttered something, and the translator explained. The dean said, the expert you mentioned went abroad for further study yesterday. Gabriel was dumbfounded, he slumped on the ground, his face flushed. Who has been contacting me and agreeing to the operation? Selena slapped Gabriel in the face. Gabriel, are you so unreliable in doing things? Even if you make an appointment with the wrong doctor, you can lose such a big living person? She was pulled away by the police and still shouted in her throat. Nathan has already entered the warehouse, if he can't find Vivian, he will be saved, he will be saved. Gabriel covered his red and swollen face and pulled the police officer in a panic. My wife disappeared in this hospital for some reason, she is still pregnant, you help me find it. The police searched all departments like a carpet, but found nothing. Gabriel couldn't wait to take the floor of the delivery room apart. But they don't know. After entering the operating room, Renee took off her false pregnant belly, changed into a nurse's uniform and swaggered out. She just entered the house now and was complaining to me about the stuffiness of her false pregnancy. Brother-in-law Caleb came back with a few bags of vegetables after a while. He threw the broken phone card into the trash can, rolled up his sleeves and began to choose dishes. Isn't my sister greedy for hot pot? Shabu is open at noon. Originally, this kind of operation was also against morality, and the police did not follow suit. It was inconvenient for me to go out, so Renee took a long leave to accompany me. A few weeks have passed, and everything is fine here. It's in the wiretap on the other side. Gabriel and Selena argued fiercely. It's all your fault, you have to listen to what country she came to. It's been a week now, and no one can be found. What can Nathan do? You are still the president of Ravenwood? This little thing can go wrong, are you ashamed of it? Gabriel was a little impatient. Can you stop the ink? Who knows how she disappeared out of thin air? It's shameful for me, isn't it shameful for you to shout? No matter how bad Vivian is, she won't be like a shrew like you. Selena got angry and fought with him. Don't go crazy, okay? A loud slap came, and Selena burst into tears. Gabriel, are you still human? You actually hit me. You think of her now, right? Okay, then you get her back quickly, save my son, and I'll make room for you. Gabriel was slow to respond. A moment later, there was the sound of fabric tearing. Eavesdropping? He sneered, his voice fierce into the microphone. Vivian, you're listening, right? Play with me? Hee hee, you can do it. Do you want to taste what happened to me? I know you haven't returned to China, you still have more than a month to go due date, hide well, give birth secretly, don't let me find you. This was followed by a piercing sound of electricity. Renee covered her ears and frowned. Sister, Nathan probably won't last a month, so it's not a problem to drag him to death. But what about Gabriel? He will find us by any means, and I am afraid that he will be bad for you and my nephew. I looked at the gun on the wall and smiled. Look, isn't this what he asked for himself? With 3 days left in the due date, Nathan died. It was Caleb who inquired at the hospital. I heard that when he died, his nose was bleeding non-stop, and he shouted weakly, I don't trust you anymore. Selena fainted on the spot. Gabriel punched the door glass and shattered it. Renee helped me prepare the production essentials. Sister, all the hospitals are his people, and I heard that Gabriel has searched the street next door, and it's only been 2 days. She may be afraid that I will worry, so she picked up the small clothes and gestured on my stomach. But don't worry, baby, my aunt will protect you and your mother even if she fights for this old life. We just finished speaking. The landline in the house rang. It was Gabriel. His voice was hoarse. Vivian is your twin sister, right? You guys played well with this swap? Tell me where you live. I know it's all her idea, I don't blame you, but she killed my son, I want to ask her in person. Renee scoffed, you don't blame me, how old are you? I haven't asked you why you killed my nephew, you came to ask me with a big face? Gabriel, if your conscience is eaten by a dog, will you go to the dog? Gabriel's voice trembled, do you believe that Ravenwood will let you? Shut up, you, if Mr. Ravenwood hadn't left you the family property, would you be a fart? With your pattern and 3 views, it's really embarrassing for Ravenwood. Renee followed what I had written, sticking to Gabriel's main artery 1 sentence at a time. He hated being told that he was useless and would only rely on Ravenwood. Okay, then wait for my son to be buried. Renee snorted, come on, fool. The phone hangs up. Renee went to check several surveillance cameras installed outside the hospital. She clapped her hands, sister, a radius of 100 meters, 360 degrees without dead ends. Despite this, my sister and brother-in-law still took turns keeping vigil. The night before my due date. They're coming. The baby was noisy in my stomach, and I couldn't sleep well and went to the living room. Under the faint moonlight, the lights in the house are not on. Renee and Caleb saw me come out, booed, and pointed to the surveillance in unison. In the picture, Gabriel and Selena are surrounded by more than a dozen bodyguards outside my yard. They wore sunglasses and wrapped tightly. Then a few people broke the door and locked it in. The door was banged by them. Caleb glanced at Renee and me and asked, "Who?" "Take my wife home." I responded, "I don't want to go back with you, you go." Selena scolded and wanted to provoke me out, "Stinky woman, you killed my son and still want to live? Hurry up and come out, or we'll go in." Renee has been a non-letting since she was a child. She had a loud voice, rolled up her sleeves and began to scolding until she was old and dirty. "Oh scolding other people's stinky women with other people's husbands at night, are you cheap? What's your name? Your son deserves to die, do you go to God to ask?" Selena was so angry that she couldn't catch her breath. "You deserve to die, you deserve to die. Why are you still standing here stupidly? Break the door and drag them out, that cheap fool, I have to slap her to death." When the door was slammed violently, we turned on the video and shouted out the door. "We have guns, don't look for death." One of the bodyguards seemed to be hesitant. "Gabriel, we are breaking into the house and robbing people." Selena was weird. "If you want to be afraid, get out, trash things." Gabriel curled his lips. "They are just afraid to scare people, shoot?" "Vivian, is she that bold? You take Vivian back today, and I'll buy you a villa for each of you." The eyes of several bodyguards lit up, and they were encouraged to instantly gain strength. Knocked on the door. But they didn't see it, and Gabriel quietly grabbed Selena and backed away. "Maybe they really have pistols, Vivian doesn't dare, her brother-in-law can't say, if they really want to fight in a while, let's stand away." Selena's eyes lit up. "Yes, you think quite thoughtfully." Caleb carefully removed the gun from the wall. He wiped the gun body and muttered, "Thoughtful fart, I'm a shotgun, I can kill 10 or 8 with one shuttle. Dare to come in, I will blur their flesh and blood." Seeing that they didn't listen to persuasion, we had to hold guns and look serious at the camera. We were sleeping soundly, and someone slammed the door like crazy, saying he wanted to kill us. I didn't want to do it, but in order to protect myself, there was no way. After a violent impact, the door opened. Several people poured in instantly. The gunshot in Caleb's hand banged. Under the dim light, sparks flew. Several bodyguards were so far away that they instantly lay on the ground motionless. The few who poured in later all fell to the ground after a gunshot before they could react. The off-white floor was bloody and scarlet. Gabriel and Selena were instantly dumbfounded when they saw that more than a dozen people were dead. They both collapsed to the ground. Caleb blew on the muzzle of the smoke and handed me the gun. "Sister, these 2 main dishes are left to you. When catastrophe comes, who is not afraid of death?" After I pointed my gun at the 2 people, they both hid behind. Selena was completely gone. She knelt on the ground with a crying voice. "I was wrong, Vivian, let me go. I just lost my son and lost my mind, please don't kill me." Gabriel pretended to be calm and stood up. "Vivian, we were wrong, you let us go. I won't hold those people accountable if they die. Forget about Nathan, can we write it off?" He looked at me holding my stomach up, his voice trembling. "Besides, Vivian, if you kill me, the child in your belly will have no father." I was silent. Selena seemed to have found a flaw, and she got up and pushed Gabriel forward and muttered softly. "She is reluctant to attack you, go grab the gun." Gabriel thought I hadn't heard, he stood up and looked at me as he walked. "What do we have to say? Put down the gun, I know you are reluctant to shoot me." Just when he thought he was going to succeed, I pulled the trigger. Bang. The closer it is, the more accurate it is. Gabriel's face exploded instantly. Under the moonlight, he twisted and lay on the ground and died instantly. I was stumbled by the recoil of the gun, but fortunately Caleb held me back. Severe pain in the abdomen. Selena took advantage of the fact that the 2 of them were checking my kung fu and hurriedly got into the car and slipped away. Renee picked up a gun to chase after her, but Caleb shouted at her, leave her alone, take my sister to the hospital first, the child is about to be born. The baby was born a night earlier. It's a son. My sister and my brother-in-law delivered the baby. Like me, very healthy and lively. I didn't give him the name I had agreed on before. Instead, call him Neo. The police wait at the door of the delivery room. My sister Renee negotiated with the police throughout the process. They were under surveillance and in the mouths of a few onlookers, and it could be completely proved that a large number of them broke into our residence. Our counterattack is justified. In Country A, there is no problem in killing a criminal who is a burglar. Renee was still a little unhappy after sending the police away. It's a pity that the woman ran away. I patted her on the shoulder to comfort her. I believe that God will make her live more uncomfortable than let her die. Because the child was born and was to settle down, I didn't stay long before returning to China. Before getting on the plane, Renee and I wiped away tears. Let you worry about it, and cause you to move. When will you return to China? I treat you and your brother-in-law to dinner. Renee looked helpless. Sister, we have just stabilized here, and we don't know what we can do when we go back. Mom is older, I will make a few more years, and then I will go back. She teases Neo by wearing a safety lock around his neck. Zaya Budian, make more money in the future, and my aunt will rely on you to support her. I waved my baby's little hand and held my throat. No problem, Auntie, I will work hard. Renee held me and choked up for a long time, and finally she was a little worried. Sister, if you kill Ravenwood's only son, Ravenwood will definitely embarrass you. Why don't you call the police now, let the police pick you up, and then ask a few more police officers to protect you in all aspects? No need. I looked down at Neo in my arms, and Bolan smiled. It's enough to have him for protection. He is the only bloodline of the Gu family. What am I afraid of? Things went far smoother than I expected. The elders of Ravenwood were grieving. But after they learned the facts, they knew that no matter how much they tossed, the family property was all Neo's, so they simply turned a blind eye. I patted the little guy. It seems that your aunt didn't expect you to be wrong. Within a few months, Renee and Caleb returned home with their families. Both of them have all kinds of certificates and qualifications. I bought them a villa and opened a private maternity hospital. On my mom's birthday, I took Neo to the hospital to pick them up. On the way back, the two of them made Neo smile. Passing by the square, a group of elderly people were dancing square dances. Neo listened to the music and couldn't help but dance in my arms. Nephew likes it, go up and take a look. Just as we were about to go up the steps, a figure quickly pounced on me. Renee quickly pulled me aside. The man climbed down the steps directly. Coincidentally, a car was speeding by. The onlookers exclaimed. We ran down. In the afterglow of dawn and dusk, the person lying on the ground turned out to be Selena. She was pale and fainted after a few convulsions. The leg was pressed and deformed. Looks. It's very similar to my previous life. When I returned home that day, Renee accused Selena of trespassing. She spent a lot of money to be exempt from litigation and return home smoothly. But without Gabriel's big tree, she was in a precarious situation. I met me by chance today, and when I saw our family and Himai, she wanted to die with me. The driver hurriedly got out of the car, called the police, and called an ambulance. Later, I heard that she was disabled and could not take care of herself, so she could only live in a wheelchair all day long. Later, I met her. On the day of the family photo, she was hunched over her upper body struggling to pick up garbage. People passing by pointed. This woman used to be very beautiful, but later I heard that in order to save the leukemia child, she faked divorce from her ex-husband, deceived other girls into getting pregnant, and asked the girls to get cesarean section in advance to get umbilical cord blood. As a result, her son was not saved, her husband died, and she did this again. Then she is really self-inflicted. So this person, you must put your heart straight, otherwise this God will repay you. I raised my head. The sky is blue. Thank you, God. Give me Neo.